day, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Business Pulse with Presto Pedago. My name is Nena Nikobiebu, and I'll be your host on today's episode. So, with me, I have my two amazing colleagues and gentlemen, Quadri and Uluwademiga. Welcome.
Yes, it's nice to be here. I mean, this is my first time here.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
we didn't do this. We haven't done this before.
Probably my dreams, though, but yeah.
Anyways, welcome. So today we'll be unpacking the 2026 economic outlook, titled "Strategy Over Survival." We recently published our report, our outlook, and we noted macro stability across all boards. We saw the inflation rate. We were seeing the MPR, I think it's from 27.5 to 27% right now. Even the FX, right? So based on all that, how would you describe the economic, what happened in 2025?
Yeah, thank you very much for that insightful question.
Yeah.
Right. So on the surface, right, the numbers, right, the statistics we studied, tells us something very, very interesting, right? Generally, right, and from our perspective, the Nigerian economy performed, amazingly well, right, in 2025 compared to 2024. Right. We saw stronger economic growth. We saw a significant ease in inflationary pressures. Right. We saw that investors' confidence rose significantly, and we also saw that foreign exchange market, which has been a market that a lot of us has paid attention to in the last couple of years. Due to the unification of exchange rate and the FX reforms, we saw that became more stable and more calm. Right. We also experienced a significant increase in government revenue, right, and this is not attributable to new taxes that was collected, right. We also you want to say something?
No, continue, please.
Okay, so we also saw that the public debt continued to rise, right.
Yes. I think I saw from that I saw they say that each Nigeria is owing about 650,000 naira.
Yeah, so this is a popular saying around that, I think, which we also sort of simplify along this conversation, right. So all in all, right, the 2025 economy performance was stable. It wasn't a year of massive prosperity, right, but as they usually say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins from a step, right, from the beginning. So basically it was a stability year.
Sorry to cut you short there. I mean, you pointed out that we experienced certain growth and all of that across inflation, exchange rate and all of that. I mean, there are numbers flying all around.
Definitely.
We're hearing 3.9 GDP, we are hearing inflation about 15%, we are hearing FX about 1.4 thereabouts, right? But I mean, I'm very sure somebody out there is like, okay, 3.9%. What exactly? How does it translate to me? I don't feel richer.
True.
So what has happened for me in 2025? So one thing we must know is that this GDP we are looking at basically is just telling us that we've become more productive as a country. Do you understand? And this inflation that we saw that sort of is, you will notice that we had a rebasing, and what this rebasing was supposed to do was to capture more sectors into basically the benchmark for its calculations and stuff like that, right? So we see numbers like this. Well, I mean, somebody out there is in the market saying, why is a tuber of yam still about selling for 3,000?
Very true. So what does that mean, right? What does a GDP growth, an economic growth of 3.89%, 3.9%, what does it mean for the average Nigerian, right? What does it mean for you? What does it mean for business owners? What does it mean for CEOs? What does it mean for household, even foreign portfolio investors that are sort of looking at and studying about emerging market economies? What does it mean for them? What it does certainly means is that the Nigerian economy, right, have found its foot once again in the sense that the economic trajectory is beginning to make more sense than it performed in the previous years, right? So what it means for the average Nigerian is that there's more production in the economy, right? The economy has become more resilient, in the last couple of years, and this is telling us that the crystallization of the economic reforms that was established in 2023-2024, right? The likes of the FS reforms, the likes of the foreign exchange unification, the likes of fuel subsidy removal, it has begun to crystallize into economic growth. So, okay.
Yes, I understand what you said so far, and thank you so much for that, Koji. But let's examine the sectoral dynamics more closely. So far, how would you say, or where did the reform traction become more visible in the real economy? I know you're already trying to budget on that, but you can just
Okay, yeah, amazing. So the economy, right? The economic reforms in particular, had a significant effect, right, across sectors. There's this traditional perspective and view that the Nigerian oil sector is the significant or is the most significant driver of economic performance. It is notable to mention that the sector actually, Nigerian oil sector, experienced a modest growth rate, about 8 to 9% growth rate, right, in the last year, right. So this growth rate was driven not just like it was not principally a statistical rebound, right. It was driven by some peculiar factors, right. So and those peculiar factors sort of includes we experienced a very reduced number of pipeline vandalism,
in 2025,
in 2025. So there was more of investment in that space by the federal government to reduce vandalism. So we also noticed that there was more investment, in the upstream sector as well as the midstream sector. Dangote refinery and the Boa refinery that's also coming up in US.
I love how you're painting the oil sector in a very good light, to be honest. But I mean, you would know that. I mean, the oil sector also did not do bad. I mean, it expanded by I think about 4 point something percent.
The service sector did that.
By the time you look at how much the non-oil contributed to our revenue, I mean, as at 2025, it contributed, give or take, over 80% of what we basically brought in or basically realized. And I mean, it just tells you how much that yes, we're always saying Nigeria is an oil economy, Nigeria is an oil of that. But it just shows how some other sectors are coming up.
Very true. Because I mean, if you sort of study the performance of the finance and insurance sector, I think they grew about 17 to 19%. And that sort of tells us about the achievements in terms of financial inclusivity, financial deepening, right? And you also know that there's this momentum around bank recapitalization. The CBN announced in 2023 for banks to sort of recapitalize their balance sheets, so they are able to absorb more macroeconomic shocks and for resilience. So that led to the growth of financial sector. We also saw significant improvement in ICT, right? And that we can attribute that to investment in infrastructure. A lot of Nigerians needed more quality in data consumption and data usage, right? So, and all of that led to a significant growth to the ICT sector. And I think you also noted that I think the railroad, the transportation sector sort of improved,
yes,
right?
It did actually.
Okay,
I think also yes, these sectors like you mentioned, the financial services, the ICT, the transportation, they did well, right? But I mean, I'm still thinking, why is it that when I go to the market, like I still see things on the quite an high side? I'm like, okay, this thing I bought 1 naira 2-3 weeks ago, why is it doubling? Why is it going up and all of that? It now makes me to wonder, okay, what did the agricultural sector do? What did sectors like livestock, what did they do?
Amazing.
All right, you notice that I think agriculture did about 2-point-something% when you look at the livestock sector, I mean, it contracted, it dropped. And one thing that is speaking is that this growth that we experience in those kind of sectors, and those are sectors that I don't want to say they affect the lay Nigerian or the very average Nigerian, but if that sector is not growing as much as it should, because I mean, we experience banditry, we experience certain sort of insecurity that did not basically foster investment in agricultural space. It then means that if the sector doesn't grow as much as other sectors like the financial services, food prices are likely to be high, right? So one thing I just want us to know when we are looking at 2025 generally is that this 2025 the performance we experienced was structural reforms driven, right? Outside of that, we're able to achieve stabilization, and achieving stabilization, we're not out of the woods yet, right? And that's where transitioning into 2026, we basically have to consolidate stabilization and push for.
So that's amazing, right? That you mentioned that the growth we experienced, across sectors was not symmetrical, right? So that asymmetry itself is something we are looking forward to in 2026 to normalize. We expect economic growth to sort of be spread equally across the sectors. The agricultural sector, most especially, needs to improve significantly. We want to see more government, investment in the agricultural space, right? We want to see more a stronger harvest period by farmers and all of that. So it's one thing we need to just know that the growth was not equal across the sectors. However, it is something we need to sort of note that the economic actually performed better compared to 2024.
Thank you so much, Quadri, and thank you so much, Bemiga. But having established that 2025 marks a credible stabilization phase, but let's look at our debt profile. Like,
okay, I mean, you mentioned something there, like, I mean, there's this banter that every Nigerian knows about 650,000. And I'm like, from where to where? Where am I owing 650,000? What did I collect from you? But currently, our debt, I think, is around 152 trillion, right? That's at the end of 2025. And I mean, you're looking at this money so large. Yes, no government is going to, when I mean government, no external government is going to come to your bank account and remove 650,000, right? But what that means is just that, okay, let's look at the country's debt profile and divide it by the population. That's basically how they arrived at you saying you owe 650,000. Right? Don't be scared. Money is not coming out of your account, right? But much more than looking at the 152 trillion naira, right? You then begs the question that what is our debt to GDP? And in 2025, it sort of improved to 34% from 38% in 2024. And yes, you see numbers here and there. All that just means is that our debt relative to our output or our productivity as a country is sort of lower, right? And yes, debt is not just one. We don't just have to look at the size. Can you now repay your loans? Basically, I don't know. You want to speak on repaying loans?
You know, so that's where expectations, foster into government's revenue performance, right? Because the government, the federal government needs to service this debt, right? They need to service the principal, they need to service the interest, right? So government revenue, right, is a significant factor when it comes to analyzing the effect of debt, on the economy. So we are expecting that government revenue, as I mentioned earlier, it increased significantly, or more, let me put it moderately, right, in 2025, right? So we are expecting it to improve significantly in 2026, right? So in order to service, the public debts and make sure that the economy is more stabilized.
Sorry, money is not coming out of you guys' account.
Okay, thank you for the reassurance. So in our published reports, right, in our published outlook, I just want to confirm, because we argued from what we published that we have stronger macro foundations, right? But as a firm, how are we going to define? How do we define 2026?
Okay. So I mean, I ended up saying something that yes, 2025 was driven by structural reforms, like we're consolidating stabilization here and there, right? So it's laying foundation, basically, as if you're building a house, laying foundation. But then you've laid foundations. What you do afterwards matters, right? And if you're looking at 2026, especially if you're looking at 2026, right, you're looking at things like, what would GDP be? What would inflation be off of the current basis we've established, right? And I mean, sectors are doing well. We see more sectors doing well. We expect more growth. I mean, we're projecting around 4.4% in terms of GDP. I mean, we're looking at inflation easing further, right? But one thing we also, while we are expecting inflation to ease further, I don't think we should put so much pressure yet on the CBN to sort of lift their legs off of the NPR so much. We would love that, right? But it comes with a risk. It comes with a risk, because if they ease their legs off of that, it means that, I mean, you can access credit easier, means small businesses can sort of get loans and do what they have to do, become more productive.
Well, it may even likely happen, because I mean, next year is the election year.
I mean,
you made very good points, right? Say next year's election year, but the CBN, right, the Apex Bank, I'm telling you this for a fact that they are monitoring the stabilization of the Nigerian economy, so seriously, right? So I don't see them sort of like cutting or reducing the policy rate significantly, right, in 2026, right? So the expectation is that the inflation pressures, sort of eased, significantly, and once that happens, sort of adjust the NPR rate, the policy rate, right? So the inflation pressure, so easing comes from the fact that we are assuming that as Bimda has actually said, that agriculture needs to growth needs to be fostered even be more, right? So we are expecting, farmers, having more effective production and all of that, right? We are expecting that people are sort of able to, purchase what they require, right, in a modest way, right? So these factors, in a way, would influence CBN, decision on the MPR rate. So I don't want you to have an expectation that the policy rate is going to, fall substantially this year. It's a rate that the CBN is
looking at 2026 also, right?
Yeah.
You know that in 2025, I don't think we met our budgeted revenue, right? And already starting 2025, we already have a deficit. The budget is saying we have expenditure according to the appropriation bill. We have an expenditure of about 58.47 trillion.
Yeah.
But we have a deficit of, give or take, about 25 trillion. And we have a revenue target of like 33 trillion. Last year, we did not meet our target revenue. So it is very imperative that this year, we really work on trying to ensure that revenue from non-oil, oil, or basically revenue from whatsoever it goes up. Because what that does is that we are able to service our debt easy, and it's more money for development.
Just to echo what Kemiga said, alright. The Nigerian, new tax regulation sort of bring the harmonization of, tax of collection, right, for the federal government. So it's not a situation whereby new taxes were created, right? It's a situation whereby the taxes that are supposed to be collected are being collected more effectively, right?
Yes,
even consolidated.
It increased, the government revenue at the end of the day.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for bringing out the time to speak. Right. I would have loved to ask you more questions around how you see it affecting businesses in detail, but you kind of buttressed on that. But I would like you to just speak. Can you just
if you're looking at how
the entire reform,
I would basically on the surface, right? I would say that 2026 is not something you should. It's basically going to be for the prepared. It's not something you should stay through.
Absolutely.
You have to prepare. And in terms of cost, we're not saying, yes, we're talking about inflation, GDP, and the likes. We're not saying input costs will just go down. So you have to basically be very efficient. We're talking of compliance. We have new laws here and there, tax laws, the recapitalizations, the NIRA, several regulatory requirements. Compliance is very key, and you don't want to be on the wrong side because compliance just got costly. Before you were seeing 50,000 naira fine for this, by the time you are seeing 1 million naira, as a small business owner trying to grow, even as a large corporation, you understand what you are exposed to. So I don't know. Do you want to add something?
So the thing is that you rightly put it into context, right? But just to add more context or anchor what you said is that I think firms, businesses, companies should closely, monitor their cost bucket. So what do I mean is that companies, right, should define what actually, influence their cost. They should actually look at what are
the bucket is not leaking.
What are the main drivers of cost, right? So any cost that is not or that does not directly attribute to revenue generation should be eliminated, or better put, managed, right? Because you want to ensure that cost management is something you take serious in 2026, right? You want to ensure that your bottom line performs, amazingly well, and that comes from your management of your costs, right?
I think you should also add pricing in there.
Right. So combination of that, right, sort of like tells you that this is a year you need to be very much prepared for, right? We I don't think we've mentioned geopolitical tensions that sort of crystallize into the economic performance, right? The likes of supply chain disruptions, the US, tariff, China's sort of slowdown, all of that. So those geopolitical conditions, might affect the performance of our oil sectors, to an extent. So we want to ensure that companies want to ensure that they sort of manage those expectations, right? And something that I think companies need to pay more attention to is the adoption of technology.
Yes.
Right.
Strategy over survival is part of this.
Very important. Adoption of artificial intelligence. I was telling my colleague that AI is here to stay. We just need to adapt. So companies want to sort of like adopt artificial intelligence solutions, right? Being as you actually said, there are a lot of regulatory requirements, right? There are a lot of things you need to comply with, right? So basically, you need to, sort of adopt AI that helps you track this regulatory requirements, right, and ensure that the business is more efficient.
And I like that in today's landscape, AI is no longer something that only large corporations can do.
I mean,
right? So even average businesses can now key into certain things. And so I think just to sum up our view basically on 2026, right, is to say, yes, we need to consolidate stabilization, which I think we've been able to do. But right now, how best to implement these policies? I mean, these laws have been signed, deadlines have been set, so implementation and efficiency is really key, and that's how I see us basically thriving in 2026.
Yes, please. Just to add to what you said, I just want to put it out there that the Nigeria capital market is something we all should look out for, right? Individuals, companies also should look out for the Nigerian capital. It's actually improved massively last year, right? Increasing to a market capitalization of about 99 trillion naira. Even the fixed income, so even fixed income markets, right, also improved to about, I think, 53 trillion, and the likes of S&P trillion fund and all of that. So we need to look out for it. I mean, there have been a rumor around that Dangote refinery might come on board.
Even NNPC,
so you can imagine what it does, right, to the economy, right? So I think we should all look out for the Nigeria capital market performance.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So as you plan your 2026, it's important to note that the era of surviving is over, right? We are now competing on content. So I mean, this has been a very exciting conversation. So thank you so much, Veriga and Quadri. I know I had to drag you both from your stage, and thank you for coming on the show. So this has been the Business Pulse podcast. Thank you for watching. I'm your host, Nananik Obiebu. So we'll meet again in the next one. Bye.